Raw was live tonight in Quebec City as their tour through Canada continues. And they were a livelier bunch than they were in Winnipeg last week. But this show has a very big problem. Monday Night Raw has a very big problem, and it was illustrated by tonight's main event. And it was a fine match. There was nothing wrong with the match itself. It was Cody and KO and Sami Zayn against the Judgment Day, and they had their usual good match. And of course, the crowd loves Sami and KO because they were in Quebec. And Kevin Owens has missed the last several weeks with a legitimate injury, which is why we had no tag team title match at SummerSlam this year. But I want to take things back to the middle of May. After the draft, and they started with the new Raw and SmackDown rosters. The draft was in early May, and I want to go back to the May 15th episode of Monday Night Raw. What I would like to do is I would like to read you here a list of the following Monday Night Raw main events, dating back to May 15th of this year. On May 15th, the Judgment Day, Damian Priest and Finn Balor defeat Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Skip ahead to June 19th. Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn defeat the Judgment Day, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio. 1 week later, June 26th, Cody Rhodes defeats Damian Priest of the Judgment Day. And I'll throw in Cody Rhodes against Dominic Mysterio for Money in the Bank, which came only a few days later. July 10th, Monday Night Raw main event, The Judgment Day. Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio beat Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Seth Rollins, replacing Cody Rhodes. 1 week later, July 17th, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn defeat, what's that? The Judgment Day. Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio, and that was for the Undisputed Tag Team titles. That was July 17th. July 31st, Monday Night Raw main event. Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins defeat the Judgment Day, Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio. Since Kevin Owens was out hurt, they just replaced Kevin Owens with a different partner, that being Seth Rollins, tagging with Sami on that night. 1 week later, August 7th, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, and Shinsuke Nakamura defeat the Judgment Day, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and Dominic Mysterio. 1 week later, August 14th, in the main event, Cody Rhodes defeats Finn Balor. And then we come to Monday Night Raw tonight with the main event of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn against Finn Balor and Damian Priest of the Judgment Day, which ended in a disqualification, which then led to our actual main event, which was Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn against the Judgment Day, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and Dominic Mysterio. I sound like a broken fucking record sitting here. This is real. What I just read to you is real. How many? How many different variations of the same fucking match can one company give us? It's like they're trying to run some kind of competition to see how many different permutations of more or less the same match can they possibly do over a period of, 6 months, let's say. Because there's no sign that this is going to be stopping anytime soon. How many times? It's beyond parody at this point. And you'll have people who say, oh, well, why complain? They're good matches. That's not the point. It's the same matches over and over and over again. They're telling a story with the Judgment Day. Sure, I get that. And I'm behind the story. But we don't need to have the same matches every single week. It's like deja vu. Shinsuke Nakamura last week whispered some sweet nothings in Seth Rollins' ear. And we did not know what it was that he whispered into his ear, but we found out tonight in what I thought was the best promo that Shinsuke Nakamura has cut in his entire WWE career. He has been with this company since 2016, going back to when he debuted in NXT. This was the best promo segment that he has been a part of since 2016 when he first signed with WWE. Just so you all know that I'm not a total downer on this show tonight. Nor am I a downer on what we got with Gunther and Chad Gable, who were scheduled to compete in an Intercontinental Championship match. And we did get an Intercontinental Championship match, although it was a match that ended via countout. And a most unique finish, but not one that I hated, because we are still going to get another match between Chad Gable and Gunther. If that finish told us nothing else, this issue between the two of them is not over. And that was my favorite part of the entire show, despite the finish, was what we got from Chad Gable and Gunther here tonight. The rest of the show I thought was very dull. We had another Becky Lynch-Trish Stratus segment that sucked. We had a few matches here and there. We had The Miz in a match with Tozawa. The match was nothing. Who gives a shit? It was more about LA Knight, who was at ringside doing commentary. He's the one feuding with Miz right now. Tozawa was just meant to be a background player. So, you know, we had a few segments like that weren't terrible, but the show dragged. It dragged ass. And it dragged ass because there just wasn't a whole lot of exciting shit on this show. A couple of things that I really liked. And the main event was not bad, but can't say that I haven't seen it before. So, not the best episode of Raw tonight. But we'll go through everything from start to finish, because that's what we do here. This is your Monday Night Raw review for August 21st, 2023. I am the Solomonster. Like and subscribe. 400 likes is the goal tonight for Be the Booker. We get there, we will do that segment later on in the show. Super chats are open, including the new $7 CM Punk banned from Collision super chat. So if you would like to be banned from Collision, there you go. You can join the growing list of folks. You too can be banned from AEW Collision. Now, they were in Quebec City tonight. Sami Zayn, one half of the Undisputed Tag Team Champions, made his way out to open the show, and he was showered with love by the Canadian fans here. They loved seeing Sami Zayn. That much is for sure. And I don't think that Sami Zayn has walked out and gotten this much love since Elimination Chamber, when he had his match with Roman Reigns. Not like this. That was in Montreal. We have not seen him get love from the crowd quite like this since February. So they sang his song. He grabbed a Quebec flag. He draped it around him like a cape. They sang the Ole Ole song. This went on for a good 5 minutes. And Sami had a big smile on his face. He was soaking up all of it. He looked like he was having the time of his life out there. So then, of course, it was interrupted by the Judgment Day, who made their way down. They surrounded the ring. Sami then asked, "Did you really think that here of all places I was going to come alone?" And that's when we heard Kevin Owens' theme music. He came out to another big reaction. Dominic dropped off the apron. He met Owens at ringside, and Owens just destroyed him. Balor ran the ropes, but Owens grabbed his foot and pulled him to the floor, ran him into the barricade. Priest tried to chokeslam Sami. He slipped away, and then Owens put Priest down with a stunner. And Owens said that it's been far too long since I've had a match on Raw. Really, because I've just read a long list of matches that Kevin Owens has had on Raw, going back to May. It doesn't feel like he's missed too many matches on Raw. I have the receipts to prove it. But he proposed a match against any two members of the Judgment Day. Didn't matter who. And Owens then said something in French that got a big reaction. And apparently the translation of what he said here was that they were going to kick some ass tonight. And that is what the crowd cheered for. So good to see KO back from his fractured rib. It was a legitimate injury, and obviously he's doing much better now. And we get the tag team champions back together. That's why they didn't strip them of the belts. You know, Owens had the fractured ribs. Sammy had that tennis ball sticking out of his elbow when he had the bursitis a few weeks ago. So, you know, it wasn't a case where any of them were seriously injured, but they've been pretty banged up. It's like the walking wounded. And so it's nice that they're doing okay and they're back together. Now, we had Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle as tag team partners. I believe this was their second match together. They were taking on Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods of The New Day. McIntyre tossed Kingston and Woods around. Riddle was pumped up, and he gave McIntyre a big hug. McIntyre then grabbed Riddle and belly-to-bellied his partner out over the top rope onto The New Day, which was an interesting bit of tag team offense there. After a break, New Day was in control over Riddle. Kofi came off the top. Riddle nailed him in the face with a rising knee. Riddle gave Woods an avalanche fisherman suplex. Before Riddle could attempt a hot tag, though, Eric of the Viking Raiders showed up at ringside, and he pulled McIntyre down from the apron. So there was no one there for Riddle to tag out to. Kofi connected with Trouble in Paradise. He pinned Matt Riddle to win the match for the New Day. Eric and Ivar then laid out the New Day and Riddle. After the match, McIntyre fought them off all by himself. So the Vikings will likely be fed to one or both of these teams. What we got from these two teams was good for the 10 minutes they got. I'm still waiting on the eventual turn, probably from McIntyre, but really it could be from either one of them. Probably McIntyre, though. If it were me, I would go with McIntyre. If anybody is going heel at the end of this, I do think it should be Drew McIntyre, because he could use something fresh. He could use a little bit of a reboot, I think. And there were reports that WWE is not, this is supposedly their goal here is not to recreate RK Bro. It's not to recreate the whole odd couple babyface dynamic and keep these two as something of a permanent team and market merch around them and everything. Supposedly that is not the plan. And if that is the case, then that would lead me to believe that at the end of all this, somebody is going to go heel. It's just a matter of who and when. Now, it's still early in their run together, but I don't see this as any sort of a long-term thing. Now, backstage, Jackie Redmond interviewed J.D. McDonough and Finn Balor. She asked McDonough about his relationship with Finn and whether it adds to the tension between Balor and the other Judgment Day members. McDonough said that Balor is like a brother to him, and he hopes that his relationship with the group becomes even stronger. Balor accused Redmond of trying to stir the pot. Rhea Ripley and Dominic showed up. Ripley told Balor, "We have to go discuss which two members of the group are going to be challenging Owens and Zayn later in the show." And as they went to go walk off, J.D. McDonough was coming with them, and Rhea stopped him and said, No, you're not part of the Judgment Day, so you don't get to come. We had a Shayna Baszler video package, which included footage of her submitting, not really submitting, I guess Ronda went out. Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam when she got her big win over her. She said that she's not here to be your hero. She's here to set it all on fire. She said, "Your only hope is to survive." And then she closed by saying, "Let the world burn." Unfortunately, feels like half the world is burning right now. They were in Canada tonight, right? They would know with all the wildfires going on. I know the last round of Canadian wildfires, it looked like something out of Mad Max here in New York. We had orange skies here across. It looked like Armageddon out here in New York, because the winds blew all that shit all the way down to New York. I remember put that picture online. They were like, is that New York? It looks post-apocalyptic. I said, yeah, thanks, Canada. So if anybody would know, unfortunately, it would be the Canadians. So then it was time for the match that I was looking forward to when this was announced last week, and that was for the Intercontinental Championship. It was Gunther defending his title against Chad Gable. And Chad Gable is getting a singles push.
It's Samoa BRO.
It's Samoa BRO, Peter Quartieri, who became a channel member as well, dropping a $19.99. Hey, Peter, thank you very much. Samoa BRO, thanks you, bro. Appreciate it. So, Gable is getting a bit of a push. This is something that he has wanted for a very long time. He's talked about wanting the opportunity to become more of a singles superstar, have more of an impact in the singles division here on this show. And he has been getting that opportunity. And he's been getting that opportunity in large part against Gunther, because we've seen them in the ring a few times now. So it all built to this, and I was surprised when they initially announced that this was going to be happening tonight, because I figured they would save this title match for Payback. And it became clear when this was over why they wanted to do this tonight. So after some early mat work, Gunther dropped Gable back first onto the barricade, and Gable barely made it back into the ring by the 9 count. Gunther used a double underhook suplex. Then he whipped him hard into the corner. Gable was so beaten up, he went to go Irish whip him into the corner again, and Gable just on the way in, he just collapsed. He couldn't make it to the other side of the ring. So Gunther was mockingly kicking him. Gable fired back with kicks of his own. Gable came off the top, but Gunther chopped him and hit a clothesline and then another one for 2. Gable countered a third clothesline attempt into a crucifix pin, only got a 2 count though. Gunther applied a sleeper hold. Gable slowly, with Gunther on his back, was able to make it to his feet. He fought back with running forearms. He hit a back suplex. Gable then took Gunther down with a dragon screw, transitioned immediately into an ankle lock, and this had the crowd on their feet once he got that ankle lock applied. And Gunther was reaching for the bottom rope. He came very close to reaching that bottom rope, but he got dragged back to the center of the ring. Gunther kicked his way free, and Gable mounted him and started raining shots down on him. Gable then delivered a delayed German suplex into a bridge for a close near fall. That will never not be impressive. To watch somebody of Gable's size pick up somebody of Gunther's size. And it's one thing to give somebody a suplex, but to do it the way that he does, the delayed suplex, the delayed German, will never not be impressive to me. And Quebec City let him know that they thought this was awesome, which it was. Gable went to the top rope to set up for his moonsault, but he took too long, and Gunther shoved him to the floor. He hit the barricade on the way down. Gunther got tired of waiting for him to get back in, so he went out after him, and he chopped the shit out of this guy. Gable ducked another chop, and this time Gunther chopped the ring post by accident. And Gable then gave Gunther a German suplex over the barricade. And this fucker landed on his head, on the concrete, on the other side in the timekeeper's area. That was, I was going to say damn near, but he landed on the back of his head. And it looked great. And so now both men are down. Gable realizes that the referee is counting. This entire time the referee has been counting. And so Gable slides back into the ring at the very last minute, and Gunther gets counted out. Gable is in the ring. He celebrates this big win via countout. And Gable is saying, I'm coming back for more. I'm coming back for more. And Gunther was livid at ringside as his Imperium stablemates here, Giovanni Vinci and Fabian Eichner, demanded that Samantha Irvin announce that Gunther was still the Intercontinental Champion. So despite the fact that he lost the match, of course, you can only win the title by pinfall or submission. So therefore, Gunther is still the Intercontinental Champion. So yes, they really did the Lex Luger finish from SummerSlam in '93. Right down to Gable celebrating as if he had won the championship. He had his arms in the air. He was celebrating. He was celebrating this big victory. The best thing I could say about them doing it this way is that at least they didn't give him balloons. Right? At least we didn't have a whole bunch of people come out and hoist them up on their shoulders, and we didn't have balloons or confetti falling from the ceiling. Was it goofy for Gable to celebrate the finish of a title match like that, knowing that he did not win the championship? Of course. Yes. Yes, that was silly. But there is one very big difference, because I know people are going to make the same comparison that, the Luger in '93 finish. And yes, it was the Luger in '93 finish. Here's the big difference. If you remember, go back to '93. When that match was made, Jim Cornette had a stipulation added that if Lex Luger did not win the championship from Yokozuna at SummerSlam, he could never again challenge for the WWE Championship. People forget that. Which made it 10 times worse when you're watching that and you see Luger, not only does he knock Yokozuna out to the floor, he's in the ring counting along with the referee. As the referee is counting to 10, Luger is counting along with him until Yokozuna is counted out, and then Luger is jumping up and down and celebrating like he just won the lottery. That's fucking stupid. Knowing that he can never again challenge for the title. That's a very big difference between that and what we got here. Chad Gable is going to get another championship match with Gunther, unlike Luger in '93, because that's what the story dictates. That's the story that they were telling here in this match. First, he lasted 5 minutes in that 5-minute challenge, right? Gunther said, "You'll never last 5 minutes with me." So he lasted the 5 minutes a few weeks ago. That was number one. This was number two. Chad Gable went in there tonight and he beat Gunther, and they made the point on commentary that tonight Chad Gable became the first man to defeat Gunther in a singles match since Gunther debuted on the main roster. He has yet to be beaten in a singles match until tonight. Now, he wasn't pinned, but he still lost. So they're making it seem like Chad Gable has this guy's number. Nobody has been more successful against this man than Chad Gable has, even though he hasn't won the title yet. So that's the story that they're going with here. And now, of course, Gunther is just furious because this guy he's like an annoying fly he's trying to swat. He just can't do it. So he's beside himself, and he wants to get his hands around this guy's neck and wring his neck. So now we have to get the rematch of Payback, but without commercials. See, that's always the drawback of doing these matches on TV, is that you have the commercial breaks that interrupt them. Now we get to see these two, and it hasn't been made official yet, but it will. Now we get to see these two go in there at Payback in a couple of weeks and do it all over again, but probably in a longer match without any commercial interruptions. And that's why I'm okay with what they did. That's why I can't hate on this finish. I mean, the way he was celebrating was goofy, sure, but it was the right move to prolong this until we get to the pay-per-view. Now, Gunther is 18 days away from passing the Honky Tonk Man's record as the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. He's this close to beating him out and becoming number one on that list. Payback comes before that, though. So Chad Gable is going to go to Payback, and he's going to lose again. He's going to fall short again of winning the Intercontinental Championship. Because you can't possibly beat Gunther a week before he breaks the all-time record. That would just be stupid. So he's going to win again. But I would not count out Chad Gable as being the one to ultimately take that championship off of Gunther. Gunther could win at Payback, and then sometime after the record is broken, they could easily get that title on Chad Gable. I don't want to see his story come to an end, where he loses at Payback and then he kind of fades back into the role that he was in before. I still think there's mileage left in Chad Gable as a single star on Raw, the underdog story. People want to see him succeed. People are going to want to see him win that championship. They're going to want to see him be the one to take down Gunther and take that title. It just can't happen at Payback because you're going to be 5 or 6 days away from the record. But what it does do in that match, if they have the announcers drive home the fact that, hey, Gunther's only a week away from being number one on the list, it's going to add so much more drama to all the near falls in that match. And there was some good near falls here in this match too. But imagine if you're that close to the record and they really drive that point home and the live crowd knows it. Imagine all the added drama with the near falls in that match. So that I'm very much looking forward to because what we got tonight was just, it was an appetizer to what the main course is going to be at Payback. So I really don't have an issue with them doing what they did here on their show. We had Byron Saxton, who was backstage, and he was joined by Cody Rhodes. And Byron wanted to know how Cody felt about the way Raw ended last week when the Judgment Day left the babyfaces laying. Finn Balor was sitting on Cody's chest and he was posing. Cody said, this setting is not working. So he grabs the microphone out of Byron's hand. He tells Byron, come with me. They walk through the backstage area. They come out into the arena before the live crowd because Cody is a man of the people. A true man of the people. So Cody actually spoke a little bit of French to the crowd. Reminds me of John Cena learning Mandarin. So, you know, he was... John Cena was always somebody who, obviously he was a company guy, but he would do things like that, where he would try to learn other languages so that when he would go to these places, he could at least speak a little bit of it when he was talking in front of the live crowd. I feel like Cody, he's kind of cut from the same cloth. You know, he's the consummate company guy. He would do stuff like that. He's probably on his bus going from city to city with Rosetta Stone on his fucking tablet, you know, trying to learn different languages. Hey, where are we going in 2 months? Oh, okay, we're going to Germany, you say? All right. Auf Wiedersehen. Auf Wiedersehen. That's Cody Rhodes. He gave a shout out to the new Raw announce team of Michael Cole and Wade Barrett. He pointed out that the Judgment Day has been in a position where they have had the numbers advantage. And he said if there was one place on the map where the numbers would not be in their advantage, it would be down the road where Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn grew up. He asked the crowd if they would be in Kevin and Sami's corner tonight, and of course they all cheered, and he said that he would be watching that match very closely. But he said tonight is about Kevin and Sami. And we're all going to watch the Judgment Day rise and fall. So no insight in this promo as to what the direction for Cody is. This was a Cody Rhodes promo, and we did not find out anything new about the direction of Cody heading into Payback. Right now he has no match. There's no obvious match for him. There was an obvious match, but they blew that at the end of the show, but we'll talk about that later. But no insight in this promo as far as a direction for Cody going into the next show. It just feels like they're sort of killing time with him. It's almost as if, you know, not putting the championship on him at WrestleMania was maybe not the right move. I don't know. He just seems to be kind of floating around. He's still over. People still like him, but he's just sort of, he's become a floater on this show. You never want to become a floater. After this, we got the explanation for what Shinsuke Nakamura whispered into Seth Rollins' ear when they had their face-to-face on last week's show. And it came in the form of a pre-taped vignette with Nakamura speaking in Japanese with English subtitles, and it worked so well. To the point where I don't know how they haven't done more of this in the past, to be perfectly honest with you. He said, everyone asked me what I whispered to Seth Rollins. Said, what could I have possibly said to fill him with fear? Seth acts like a man who has it all, a prosperous, charismatic champion. Now, as he was talking, I should say, they were splicing in various highlights and footage of Seth, so it wasn't just, you know, focused on Shinsuke. It was one of these video packages where they'll splice in other footage. But he said, Seth acts like a man who has it all, a prosperous, charismatic champion. I know Seth, and I know his weaknesses. He says, I whispered to Seth, I know about your back. Seth's back has been broken for many years. He lives in pain. No matter how successful he is, when he hugs his wife, he's in pain. When he picks up his child, he's in pain. He is a world champion, yet every day is filled with pain. And now, his worst fears are coming true. He knows that I can break him once and for all. You see, Seth and I are not so different. I have a void too. We live by a code that others do not. In fact, that code is displayed on Seth's back. And then they showed what I assume were Japanese characters that Seth has tattooed down the center of his back, I believe. He said the very same back that is failing. His body has crumbled under the pressure of his own vanity. Are you satisfied, Seth, with what you've done in your life? Because I will not be satisfied until I take this burden from you. Once and for all, watch your back. You know, no wonder Seth's back is broken. He had to carry this show for so long because Roman Reigns refused to show up on Mondays. So it was the Seth Rollins show. Now this poor guy has a bad back. This was, as I said at the beginning of the stream, I thought the best Shinsuke Nakamura promo of any kind that we have had since he debuted in this company, whether it be NXT or the main roster. This right here, this was the best. It had a lot of dialogue. It had way more dialogue than Nakamura is used to having in his promos. So doing it this way, having him speak in Japanese and just having the English subtitles on the bottom of the screen was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Because again, English is not his first language. So when he's out there in front of the crowd, he'll sometimes speak Japanese, and then Asuka does the same thing where she'll speak Japanese and go back and forth. But when he's out there in front of a live crowd, because it is not his first language, so he's trying to do these promos in English, and yeah, it's like this broken English, and it's just little, almost like little sound bites, right? He can't go out there the way that a lot of other people would go out there and just speak for 5 or 10 straight minutes. It just doesn't work. And they've tried to avoid doing that with him. Well, you don't have to worry about that here. If you're going to do something pre-taped with subtitles, you can just let him, you can do a long promo with him. And the way they shot this, and I thought the way they did this was very well done, and they should do more of this. I also like how they've weaved in a real-life situation. Because many weeks ago, Seth was on Logan Paul's podcast. And on that podcast, he told Logan Paul, he's been dealing with a lot of nagging injuries, but he specifically mentioned the lower back. And he said that he's been trying to avoid surgery on his lower back since 2019. Because it's bad and it's only getting worse. So now in this storyline, Nakamura has a target. And they've now cultivated this story around the bad back that Seth Rollins had, around the bad back that he told Logan Paul about all those weeks ago. Now, was that a seed planted in the Logan Paul interview for this eventual storyline with Shinsuke? It's possible. I'm assuming it's a real injury that they're now weaving into the storyline, that he does have a bad back. But I like that. I like the way that they have, weaved that into the story now heading into their pay-per-view match. And this was great. Now we had Rhea Ripley, the Raw Women's Champion. Actually, no, I guess not the Raw Women's Champion. She's the champion on Raw. But she is no longer the Raw Women's Champion. She is the Women's World Heavyweight Champion. Non-title match one-on-one with Candice LeRae. Someone who we do not get to see very often on this show. So a rare in-ring match for Candice on the show. And it went about the way that you would have expected it to go. And frankly, it went exactly the way that it should have gone. Candice got a little bit of offense in. She hit a nice-looking lion salt. Ripley won quickly, though, by submission with her prism lock, which is the standing cloverleaf submission that she does. And that's all this needed to be, because they still have done nothing to build up Candice LeRae. So you're going to go from doing nothing with Candice LeRae to putting her in the ring with the Women's World Champion, who's twice her size. And expect what exactly? Is Candice supposed to go in there and beat Rhea to where Rhea is kicking out at 2.5 and coming this close to beating the Women's World Champion? Of course not. Rhea should have gone in there and did exactly what she did. She basically finished her off in record time and made short work of this woman. And until they take the time to start building her back up, it's almost like they break these people down just so they can build them back up. Some of them they build back up, some of them they don't bother. They just break them down and leave them in a crumpled little heap. Candice LeRae has got to start racking up some wins and try to get over before you start putting in the ring with Rhea Ripley. Doesn't make sense to have her go in there and have an ultra competitive match with Rhea. So I would have done the same thing. I would have beaten her quickly. I mean, if it were me, I probably wouldn't have done the match. But beating her quickly is exactly what I would have done. Now, when the match was over, Raquel Rodriguez came out, and she was on one crutch. And Rhea and Dom saw this, and they start laughing at her, thinking, she's still hurt. Of course, she wasn't. She took the crutch. She threw it at Rhea, tossed it over to her. And then she hit her with a big boot. Rodriguez threw Ripley into the barricade and then into the ring. And Rhea fought back, but Raquel put her down with a clothesline. She followed that with a fallaway slam, and Rhea rolled out to the floor. Raquel got a mic, and she announced that she was medically cleared to compete. After all of these weeks, she has finally been medically cleared. She says she spoke with Adam Pearce, and she will challenge Rhea for the championship at Payback. Their last match together back in NXT was that last woman standing match that they had. I know some of you have not seen it. Some of you have. That was a very good match. And they were legitimately good friends, and I assume they are still legitimately good friends, going back to their days in NXT. So there's a history there, there's a friendship there, but that last woman standing match was very good stuff. If you need any frame of reference for what these two are capable of in a match, I suggest you go back and find that match. I think it was maybe a couple of years ago now. So I'm optimistic about the match at Payback. I don't know that it'll be as good. You know, Falls Count Anywhere, you can brawl all over the place. This is just a straight wrestling match. But I am optimistic that these two will be able to go out there and have a good match. We had a backstage promo with Tommaso Ciampa. He was sitting in a chair, looking into the camera at all of us. He said that it's been 9 weeks since he returned to Monday Night Raw, and he said that it had been a long 63 days to reflect on the man that he has been since he's returned. He said that he would be lying if he didn't want that Intercontinental title opportunity that Chad Gable now has. And Chad actually beat him for it. He spoke about how he nearly had Nakamura defeated. He said the pressure is like oxygen and he's dying to take a breath. And then he dropped a reference to doing it yourself. DIY, you say. He said that he is here to take over. You know, can we stop with all the teases? Just fucking do it already. I'm sick to death of these fucking teases. Every now and then they'll drop a little DIY. This is not the first time we've had a DIY reference on this show. And I still don't know what is going on with Johnny Gargano and his injury status. I don't know if he's been cleared and they're just waiting for the right opportunity to bring him back, or if he's still hurt and he's not medically cleared and everything is just sort of in limbo. But I'm done with these fucking teases already. Just do it. Just give me what I want. We need DIY on the main roster so we can eventually get DIY against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for the tag team title. That's what I want to see. Make it happen. Stop talking about it and let's get the show on the road here. Come on. I think I'm just desperate for new matches on this show. I think that's what it is. After I read that laundry list of main event matches at the beginning of the stream, I am just desperate for a different tag team match in the Monday Night Raw main event, or just a different team on this show. So please, for the love of God, I don't know if Johnny is cleared or not. I hope he is. Enough with the teases. Let's just let's get the party started here. I don't know what they're waiting for, especially because, look, if Triple H doesn't make his move soon, the old man's going to be out of the hospital bed. I'm not so sure he isn't already out of the hospital bed. All these rematches, that's a hallmark of Vince McMahon. But if he's still laid up from his surgery, he ain't going to be laid up for that much longer, right? We all heard that he didn't like The Way. Triple H had started bringing back The Way, and all of a sudden it disappeared. And then Sean Ross Sapp let it slip in one of his Q&As a few weeks ago when somebody asked him about it. He said, well, basically that was one of those ideas that got Vinced. Okay, well, all of a sudden Vince has surgery, and we were seeing Candice LeRae, we saw Indy Hartwell on the show last week. I don't know how much longer this is going to go on for. So he better not wait too long or he may miss his shot. Now we had The Miz out to the ring. He talked about LA Knight losing on SmackDown. He said everyone is blaming him for that. Miz said Knight fails to realize that there is no room for excuses on the Big Show. He said The Rock messed with his match at WrestleMania 27, and he was still able to retain his WWE Championship. Yes, please don't remind me. Let's not remind people, please, of WrestleMania 27 and the worst WrestleMania main event of all time. Let's not talk about that. Miz said people will remember him 20 years from now as a game changer and a trendsetter. He said 20 years from now, people will remember LA Knight as a blip on the radar. He will go down as the Hoobastank of WWE. The Hoobastank, you say. Hey, let me tell you something. Crawling in the Dark and Running Away are fucking awesome songs. Okay, I don't give a shit what anybody says, and those may be the only two songs of Hoobastank that I know of, or that I liked. But they are two very good songs, and I will fight anybody who disagrees with me on that. So, he said Adam Pearce allowed him to handpick his opponent tonight, somebody bigger faster, and stronger than anyone LA Knight has been in the ring with. And he introduced Akira Tozawa. So Tozawa comes to the ring, and Miz introduces him as a former 24/7 champion. He said it's too bad that title doesn't exist anymore because it would be perfect for LA Knight because it's also a relic from the Attitude Era. Do not slander the hardcore title by comparing it to the 24/7 title because the hardcore title was far more entertaining than that 24/7 bullshit ever was. So please do not compare the two. Tozawa answered with a yeah after The Miz would ask him a question. That started to annoy The Miz, who booted him in the face, and then he called for the bell to ring. And as soon as the bell rang to start the match, we hear LA Knight's music. He comes out, and he's not Canadian, but he came out and he got a huge ovation from the crowd here in Quebec City. They love them some LA Knight. So he ended up joining on commentary for the match. Tozawa drop-kicked a distracted Miz out to the floor. And Tozawa hit Miz with a suicide dive. Knight on commentary mocked The Miz for bringing up the Attitude Era when he himself was a background singer for John Cena and The Rock, which, I mean, there's no lies detected there. That's exactly what it was. If you're wondering, The Miz was in the WrestleMania 27 main event. If you've ever asked the question why was The Miz in the WrestleMania main event? It's because The Miz really was not the most important part of that match. The Miz was actually the least important part. And he came in as the champion and left as the champion. And yet he was number 3. Because that whole thing was designed to set up the following year's WrestleMania main event. No WrestleMania main event should ever be used solely to build to the next year's WrestleMania main event. That's one of the things I hated about that match. Other than just John Cena and The Miz is not a WrestleMania main event. So again, no lies from LA Knight here on commentary. Miz tried to run Tozawa into the announce desk, but Tozawa actually jumped on top of the desk and then came off, executed a Hurricane Rana. That caused Miz to take a very forced-looking bump into the rings. He wasn't really close to the ring steps, so he sort of had to dive into them. Tozawa sent Miz back inside. He went for his huge top rope senton. Miz got his knees up. Miz looked over at LA Knight, and he mocked him while setting up for the skull-crushing finale. Tozawa then hooked Miz into a pin, and he got the shock 3 count. There was no need for this to go 7 minutes. Afterwards, Miz argued with the referee. LA Knight got into the ring, and he put him down with his blunt force trauma finish. I can't complain about getting more LA Knight on TV. So that was a good thing, seeing him on the show tonight. Miz, of course, looked like a geek, as he always does. Backstage, Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle were together, and McIntyre told Riddle that, look, we're not really working out as a team. And Riddle was pleading with him. He was pleading with Drew McIntyre, please, they killed my push. I have nothing else. If you don't team with me, I'm done for. He didn't say that, but you know he was thinking it. New Day showed up. Woods said the crowd loved them and said that you guys have a good thing going. Kofi Kingston agreed. He said that they had potential. And Woods suggested Mick Riddle as their team name. See, this is why Drew McIntyre has to just turn heel and fucking murder everybody. Because now we're getting into that territory where it's like, all right, this is not what he needs. Mick Riddle, this is not what he needs. If I'm Drew McIntyre, I am taking a hammer to the back of this man's head next week. I'm going to bludgeon him on the show, and that will be the end of Mick Riddle. Let's cut this thing off before it goes any further. This is not what Drew McIntyre needs. Woods offered them a rematch after they beat the Viking Raiders next week, and Riddle begged McIntyre to team up with him again. McIntyre smiled, but he walked off without answering, and Riddle was just happy that he at least did not say no. Elsewhere in the back, in the land of the Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio asked Damian Priest if he was able to work things out with Finn Balor. And Priest said no, because Balor didn't trust him and told him to talk to JD McDonough. And this annoyed Rhea, who said that they were going to do things her way. She left without explaining what that meant. Then we had Becky Lynch. on her way to the ring for a promo. And this is where I'll pause and just check and remind all of you the goal tonight for Be the Booker is 400 likes. So we are not quite there yet, but we're getting there. So don't forget to hit that thumbs up, and maybe we'll do that later on. I'm trying to find other things to talk about to avoid having to get into this segment. So how is the weather today where you were? Man, it was fucking hot as balls here in New York, man. 90 degrees, a real feel of about 95. I was sweating bullets all day, man. I tell you. The weather's supposed to cool off, though, a little bit this week. It's actually going to get nice these next few days. All right, so we have to talk about this. So Becky Lynch comes to the ring for a promo. And she literally started the promo by referring to, quote, the last few brutal months of this rivalry. I shit you not. That is exactly what this woman said. The last few brutal months of this rivalry. Now, I'm sure that she meant this in a different way than I took that to mean. But boy, if there was ever a worked shoot comment, there it is. Yes, brutal is a pretty good word to describe how this rivalry has gone over these last few months. She says there's been a lot of talk about who is the greatest. And really, it comes down to legacy. What do you want your legacy to be? I think she's doing great harm to her legacy, honestly, with what she's been doing the last 6 months. But she says, how can you turn those lemons into lemonade? And she has a new t-shirt. I wish I would have brought a picture of it up. She has a new t-shirt. It literally is a picture of a giant lemon. And if you're wondering, what does that mean? What is that in reference to? It's in reference to her missing SummerSlam. And she posted a photo, I think on Instagram, maybe Twitter also, but she posted a photo on Instagram. And she was at home, and I think she was cutting lemons. It was something like, when life hands you lemons, you turn it into lemonade. She was being very passive-aggressive on social media about missing SummerSlam this year. I think Trish was doing the same. Clearly, they were not happy about not being on the show. And so now she has a t-shirt with a lemon on it. I would love to know whose idea this was. I would love to see the stats, actually, on that t-shirt. I really would. Because I know, like, LA Knight is doing really well. Cody's merch does really well. The Bloodlines merch is still doing very well. When Bray Wyatt was still around, say what you want to about Bray, his merch usually did very well. How many people are buying her t-shirt with a lemon on it? I would love to know. I would like to see those numbers. It's so fucking lame. But I would love to see those numbers. Now, she said that her legacy would not be defined by wins or losses or by championships. It would be defined by survival. You can break her bones and put her on the shelf, but she would always come back. She was unstoppable, not because she always won, but because she would always fight. She said that she had Trish Stratus in a cage match at Payback, but she still had unresolved issues with Zoe Stark. Stratus and Stark interrupted. Trish had a mic. And Trish said that she was happy to be north of the border, right? She was buttering up all the Canadian fans. I mean, you could see where this was going. Buttering up all the Canadian fans. She said she was happy to be north of the border instead of with the U.S. a-holes. And then Trish turned on her Canadian fans. She turned on Quebec City because she said they meant nothing. She said Toronto gets all the love, right? Trying to get boos here. They booed. She let them know, well, at least the Maple Leafs made the playoffs. Which reminds me, as I watch this terrible promo segment, it reminds me it was actually 20 years exactly. 20 years ago. 20 fucking years. My God, where does the time go? 20 years since The Rock, Hollywood Rock, came out and cut that promo in Toronto. Jesus. That's right. He came out. He was wearing his vest. Came to the ring. Stronger than a bear. Faster than a buck. The biggest thing to hit Canada because the Maple Leafs suck. That was a sweet promo. That was actually one of the best promos of his career. So she said, well, at least the Maple Leafs made the playoffs. I take it the Maple Leafs were pretty terrible in 2003. I know nothing about hockey, so I mean, that's a legitimate question. I have no idea. I don't know how the Maple Leafs did then. I don't know how the Maple Leafs are doing now. I don't really care. I'm kind of curious, but not really. She said that she would make like Justin Trudeau and split, playing off the fact that Trudeau recently separated from his wife. Then the crowd chanted something at her in French. And I thought that this was pitch perfect. There were a few things about this segment, like Becky opening it by talking about how brutal this has been. And I just thought, man, that was so good. But this right here, I think, sums this whole thing up as well as anything I could ever say. They're chanting something at Trish in French, and she claims that, oh, I don't understand what they're saying, and she just quickly moved on in her promo. I didn't understand it either, what they were saying, because I don't speak French. So I checked, and apparently what they were chanting was, "We don't fucking care." That is what the crowd was chanting at Trish Stratus during this segment in French. We don't fucking care. And that really is the story of this entire feud. They've been on this Canadian tour now for a few weeks. Even the fans in Canada cannot bring themselves to give a single shit about this feud. And they articulated that in their own language here in this segment. All you have to do is go back and watch any of these segments that they have had. Even the match last week. Was it last? I think it was last week. The match last week, or any of these promo segments when Trish comes out for a promo, or even Becky. But this has been the case even with a lot of the Trish promos as well, where she goes out there and she has a lot of dialogue and she has a lot of things to say. Nobody cares. This just hasn't worked. Heel Trish 15 years ago or 18 years ago, whatever it was, I remember that being a pretty good run. When Trish came back, people were responsive to her as a babyface because she's a legend in their eyes and she had been gone for a while. This heel Trish run just has not worked. There's no way that it's worked in the way that they had hoped that it would work. And pairing her off with Zoe Stark, the idea was that Zoe would get some rub from all this. And now here we are deep into this feud. And I'm not so sure how great of a rub Zoe Stark has really gotten from this. Because when this feud is over, ask yourself this question. Look at the position that she's in right now. When this is over, and I hope to God that it's over in 2 weeks of Payback. When this is over, and Zoe Stark, let's say, is back to being by herself, is she going to be in a better position than she was when this first started? I don't think so. She's going to be in the same exact position that she was in when this started. I don't feel as if she's been rubbed in such a way where she now feels like a bigger star than she was 3 months ago. And we're not done yet, so who knows? I mean, maybe this ends with her against Trish, because Trish, turns on her and throws her aside, and then Zoe, wants a match with her. Who knows how this is going to end? I don't see this as benefiting anybody. It hasn't really benefited Zoe. It's not benefiting Trish. Other than the fact that Trish gets to go out there. I mean, she got her ladder match. She always says she wanted to be in a ladder match. She got to be in Money in the Bank. She's never been in a cage match. She's going to get her cage match at Payback. She's getting to cross different items off of her wrestling bucket list. So maybe she's getting what she wants out of this, but I don't see how this is benefiting Becky or Zoe or any of the people involved. This thing has not been working. It has not been clicking, and it is not going to work. So the quicker they can wrap this up and move past this, the better I think everybody will be. Now, Trish said that Payback would be her first cage match, and she admitted that she was scared. But she was scared when she debuted 24 years old with no experience, and she killed it. She was scared when she was the first woman to ever main event Raw, and she killed it. Let me stop here. I know it shouldn't bother me. It's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but it annoys me that this has become the narrative. And it is so demonstrably false. And yet they continue to peddle this narrative of Trish and Lita being in the very first women's main event in the history of Monday Night Raw. And because of that, they're these trailblazers. You could say that Trish and Lita, call them trailblazers or whatever big words you want to use. But it is factually incorrect to keep insisting that Trish and Lita were the very first women's match in the main event of Monday Night Raw. That is not true. Go back 4 years before Trish Stratus and Lita headlined Monday Night Raw, and you had Stephanie McMahon and Lita in the Raw main event for the WWE Women's Championship. And yes, The Rock was the guest referee. And yes, there was interference from some of the men. And so people may look at that and go, well, see, it wasn't a true women's main event because there were men involved. There were penises around the ring. So fucking what? You had Lita and you had Stephanie McMahon, 2 women in the main event of Monday Night Raw in 2000. And actually a pretty memorable moment, too, because Lita won the Women's Championship that night. And it's just as if it doesn't exist. It's like it never happened. You can go back even further than that. You can go back to 1995. Alundra Blaze and Bertha Faye were technically the main event of the show. Now, they didn't close the show because they had a sit-down interview with Jim Ross and Shawn Michaels that did. But as far as in-ring, technically, that was the main event of the show, and that was in 1995. So, again, this narrative, I don't know how this just became sort of accepted to where even online people talk about this. Trish and Lita, 2004, first Raw main event. Bullshit. No, that's not true. I'm kind of shocked, to be honest with you, because for all the talk about the women's revolution, and Stephanie McMahon used to come out there and champion that, and she would be the face of it and everything, almost like she was taking credit for it. I'm surprised they don't want to credit her with being in the first women's main event on Raw. You would think that's exactly what they would do. Stephanie McMahon was in the first ever women's Raw main event. Maybe they think they'll get blowback for it if they push that narrative. I don't know, but it's about time you put an end to this. It's not true. So Trish said once again she finds herself in a position where she has to prove herself. And she was sick of having to prove herself, and Becky would see a side of her that she hasn't seen before. She said Becky should be scared because you're not going to survive this one, bitch. And Becky pretended to be scared and then announced that she was going to be wrestling Zoe Stark on Raw next week in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Cannot wait for this to be over. We have Chelsea Green, one half of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, found herself a new partner. And do you know how she found herself a new partner? Piper Niven, who has not been on the show in months, randomly showed up last week and said, I'm your partner. And now we have new tag team champions. So that's how they resolved that whole issue. They had a match on this show against Caden Carter and Katana Chance. Carter and Chance, they hit a very nice double team move on Chelsea. The referee, though, did not count the pin because she did not see them make the tag. Piper then pulled Carter to ringside, ran her into the announce desk. Back inside, Piper hit Chance with a crossbody block splash, and she scored the pin to win the match that barely lasted 90 seconds. I want to say this went maybe a little over a minute 30. This division, and I use that word loosely because there really is no women's tag team division. It doesn't exist, but let's pretend that it does. This division has been absolutely decimated. So in their infinite wisdom, what do? They decide to squash the one legitimate women's tag team that they have in the entire company. Caden Carter and Katana Chance are a very good team. They've been partners now for several years down in NXT, former NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. They've really created this great chemistry between them to where they have become a legit tag team. And they get squashed like a bug. Just like that. Good job. A lot of brain-dead fucking idiots in this company. Because they insist on keeping these tag team titles, yet they have no intention of creating an actual tag team division. So I am trying to understand exactly what the logic is behind keeping these useless titles if this is what they are going to do with the few legitimate teams they have in the division. It just doesn't make sense to me. I have no problem with them shining a spotlight on Piper Niven. Piper Niven is very good. Piper Niven has been missing for a long time. They never bothered to explain why. She just randomly reappeared. Fine. Maybe she fell into a time warp and she finally found her way back. But there are other ways that you can shine a spotlight on this woman without doing it at the expense of Caden Carter and Katana Chance. One of your only fucking teams. Seth Rollins was in the back. He was being interviewed by Jackie Redmond. He encouraged the crowd to sing his song, and so they did. Jackie then asked him about what Shinsuke Nakamura said earlier about his back. And Rollins got serious. He said that he does have 2 fractures in his lumbar spine. He said that he's been living with it for over 4 years now. He said it's something that will continue to get worse, not better. And he doesn't know how much longer he'll be able to do things at the level that he currently does them at. He got very hot here about Nakamura mentioning his wife and his daughter. Said that Nakamura better be prepared to face him man-to-man. He said Nakamura was not even at Raw tonight. He was in a television studio thousands of miles away. He said that he was going to give Nakamura one more chance to play his little mind games. He said he could prove to the world that he is an honorable warrior. He said that he would be in the center of the ring next week dressed to the nines with the world title around his waist and the whole world chanting his song. The main event was Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn against the Judgment Day. Bet you don't know which episode of Raw I'm referring to. Could be any number of them. But I am referring to tonight's show. We just did not know which 2 members of the Judgment Day it was going to be. Damian Priest came out. Rhea Ripley dragged out Finn Balor. And she told him, you 2 are teaming up tonight. Whether you like it or not, you 2 are going to be tag team partners. See, we know who wears the pants in this family. I've said before, Rhea Ripley is the real leader of the Judgment Day. It's not Finn Balor, it's Rhea Ripley. She proved that tonight. So she forced Balor and Priest to put aside whatever differences they've been having, and they were challenging Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in this match. Owens was all over Balor. Priest grabbed his briefcase. Zayn, though, clobbered him, and he dropped the briefcase. JD McDonough was out there. He tried tossing the case to Finn Balor, but Owens intercepted it, and he bonked Balor in the head with the briefcase. The referee, standing right there, he did it in full view of the referee, and so the referee called for the disqualification. Judgment Day swarmed Owens and Zayn. Some people in the crowd chanted Cody. Cody Rhodes, who was in his gear, so he must have had a sense of what was going to happen here, because he was in a suit earlier. It was the main event of this show, which he was not a part of, but yet he was in his gear. So there you go, Cody. Hey, not only a man of the people, but also always on the ready, because you never know when you may be needed. So Cody ran down to the ring, even the odds. He challenged them to a 6-man tag team match. Adam Pearce came out and made it official. And so our new main event was already in progress on the other side of the commercial break. We had the Judgment Day taking turns hitting moves on Kevin Owens, including Rhea Ripley, who body slammed Kevin Owens on the floor, and then she gave him a whole series of crotch chops and told him to suck it. Zayn eventually got the hot tag and gave Priest a tornado DDT for 2. Balor distracted the referee, allowing Ripley to yank Zayn off the top rope. Priest followed with a choke slam, but Owens broke up the cover. Owens then threw Balor out of the ring. Dominic tagged in. Zayn got his knees up on a frog splash from Dominic. Cody reappeared on the apron after he had been knocked off a few minutes before. Zayn made the tag, and Rhodes hit Dom with a disaster kick. Caught Dom and Priest with a double Cody cutter. Rhodes delivered a crossroads to Balor before Dominic tried a schoolboy for 2. Cody gave Dom a crossroads, and then Zayn gave him a haluva kick. And finally, Kevin Owens finished him off with a stunner for the win. After the match, Zayn grabbed the mic and said, "Hey, Judgment Day, better luck next time, eh, bud?" And he thanked Quebec, and the babyfaces embraced as the show went off the air. No major developments in this match with the Judgment Day like we've had over the last few weeks, other than just the usual arguing that they've been doing of late, yet another loss that will continue building to whatever this either split or whatever the kind of the final resolution to this is going to be with the members of the Judgment Day. And I hope it's not kicking someone out of the group just yet. There's still time, I think, to get to that point. But no major developments on that. And the question is, what do you do now with Cody at Payback? Cody is one of the biggest stars in the entire company. One of the top 2 baby faces on Raw, along with Seth Rollins. Rollins has a match, Cody does not. What do you do with Cody? The obvious match to do to get them all on the show would have been Cody, KO, and Sammy against the Judgment Day. And they gave it away here on the show. But then again, after what I said earlier, hey, I mean, shit, it hasn't stopped them before. So even though we got that tonight, we'll probably get it again at Payback. I mean, really, what's stopping them from doing it again? If they don't, there is the possibility that they could do Cody and Damian Priest in a singles match. And this was an idea that I talked about on the podcast just yesterday, of doing Cody and Priest.
Look, everyone,
somehow
it's Samoa BRO.
Getting the getting the briefcase up for grabs, and you could have it for the Money in the Bank briefcase, because JD McDonough made the point a few weeks ago that, you know, you guys, Priest and Balor, the reason that you guys are having issues is because of that briefcase. You got to get rid of that briefcase. Maybe that's their way of getting rid of the briefcase, and Cody wins the case. The only thing is, I don't see Cody carrying around the Money in the Bank case for months and months, just to wait and cash in a WrestleMania. But that is a possibility. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't know what else you do with Cody. There is no other obvious match for him at this point, other than just running back the match that we had tonight. But I mean, my God, how many times are we going to get the same match, the same main event, over and over and over again on this fucking show? It's sickening. It is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Thankfully, the people involved are very good at what they do. It would be a lot worse if they were having shitty matches and we got them over and over and over again. At least they're good matches, or very good sometimes. But that doesn't make it any less ridiculous that they keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's like they're completely devoid of ideas on what else to give us. And that's not for you to come up with. That's not for me to come up with. I mean, I pitch ideas all the time. That's their fucking job. They have a whole creative team. They pay people to do this. This is the best they could come up with every week? This is what creative comes up with? This is their creative idea every fucking week? To give the same match over and over again? I feel like I'm watching this show on repeat. It's ridiculous. Here's a Twitter poll. 59% thumbs up, 41% thumbs down for this show. I think that's generous. At Solomonster is where you can go ahead and vote. It really, honestly, it does. It feels like Groundhog Day every single week with this show. I feel like I'm watching Groundhog Day. Let's go to your super chats and see if you guys agree. Solo is done. Yeah, Solo is done. Solo is done. He's done with this show. Groovy Goose. Thank you for the $4.99. Said if I had to pick the Mount Rushmore of wrestling commentary, I would put 4 different pictures of you, Solomonster. Keep up the great work. You're the best. Well, I wouldn't want Mount Rushmore to be as repetitive as these Raw main events, so I think we could come up with 3 other faces. That's very nice of you to say. I appreciate it. Lady Fire Panda with the $20 super chat. People use the term buried or burial, yet they don't know what they mean. Can you educate them by giving some examples of what a burial is? Well, yeah, I mean, DDP basically going from main eventer to perverted stalker and having the Undertaker's wife pin him on television. I'd say that's a pretty good example of a burial. Don't say that to Bruce Pritchard, though, because he'll give you 15 fucking reasons why it wasn't a burial. Oh, well, we were just trying to build him up. We were just trying to build him up. Really. One of the few guys who truly got over on his own as a real star during that Monday Night War period in WCW. And that's what they gave him. You're going to tell me that's not a burial? If I had to give you some other examples of burial, I mean, look, I look at what happened to Test after Triple H and Stephanie did their wedding angle in 99. Test was getting over pretty good in 99. Especially after that match he had at SummerSlam with Shane McMahon, the whole lover or leaver match. And he had Stephanie McMahon on his arm, and he was getting over. And then Triple H married Stephanie, and it was all downhill after that for Test. That's a good example of it. How about John Cena getting DDT'd on concrete? Outgunned, outnumbered in the main event of SummerSlam, and coming back, making his own comeback and beating the Nexus, which had been the hot thing on television for the past 2 months. I'd call that a burial. Even Cena himself, from what Chris Jericho said in his book, after it was over, acknowledged, yeah, maybe that was a mistake. Yeah, you think? Yeah, I think it was too. You know what I would throw on that list also? I would throw Brock Lesnar and Kofi Kingston from that first SmackDown on Fox. Kofi Kingston had 6 months as WWE champion. The bell rings. He lunges at Brock. Brock picks him up. F5, 1, 2, 3. Buried in 8 seconds. Goodbye, Kofi Kingston. He's still, not only was he buried, he was buried back down on the, see, there's levels to this. This is how you have to understand this. There's levels to this. The top level is the main event level in this company, right? That's like the top soil. And then underneath, you have the middle. That's the mid card. And then all the way on the bottom is, well, the bottom of the card, right? The people who are not stars at all. Kofi Kingston is right in the middle. He's still stuck there ever since 2019 because he got planted firmly into the ground. He's not on the top soil. He's the next level down. And that's pretty much where he's been stuck ever since. So I would call that a burial. I would throw at you, boy, you got me all fired up now. I would throw at you FTR at Raw 25 when they did that show from the Manhattan Center and they got beat and then they had to take all the different moves from all the members of the Clique. Yeah. Or how about that segment where the Usos were eavesdropping on them in the showers? What were they doing in the shower? You know what? I don't even want to know. So I'll throw them on that list too. And just to kind of round this out, I would throw Lacey Evans on there. Lacey Evans, I just talked about her on the podcast just yesterday. She is gone from WWE. I should have played taps when I started the stream in her honor. But that's a great example of somebody who was being pushed by Vince McMahon. And they tried to push her multiple times. And then she went from that to not getting any television time at all, being squashed in 2 minutes by Charlotte. That to me is when you talk about burial or buried, because it is a very overused term, and I don't use it very often myself. A true burial would be somebody who isn't featured on television at all. Somebody who's a bench warmer in the back and catering, somebody who barely gets mentioned, barely gets any attention. When they do get on television, it's usually 2 minutes, or they're not even the focus. The announcers, they're not really talking about them. It's almost like they don't even exist. That is the true definition of a burial. When you're not even good enough to get television time, it's as if you have no value to the company. It's as if you don't exist. So somebody who maybe that you like, who maybe is not winning a lot of matches at the moment, but they're getting a lot of television time, it really depends on the situation. I don't know that I would call that a burial. Certain situations it might be. But those are really the people who I would say are the ones that are being quote-unquote buried. It's, yeah, someone who's in a position where you can't even get television time. And when you do, you're not even the focal point of what's going on screen. You're an afterthought. That's a burial. So anyway, I hope that answers that question for you. Emma with the $7 super. You know what I'd like to bury? I'd like to bury this show. Can we bury tonight's show? Emma says, thank you to all the concerned listeners who were worried about me last week. I can assure you I made it out of the MTS Center and I'm alive and well. The crowd was very loud in real life last week. Emma, thank you. The Dada and Boys podcast. If Keith Lee would have gotten in shape, would he have found as much success on the main roster as the ring general. I think that in WWE, I think that that's probably what Vince McMahon would have liked, would have been for him to lose some weight, because I'm sure that worked against him in their eyes. So do I think he would have had the success that Gunther is having? I don't know about that. I won't go that far and say that he would have had the same level of success. I think, as far as in ring, Keith Lee is very good. And he can do things for a bigger man that are very impressive. But Gunther, as a performer in the ring, is just on another level. And we're also talking about two different things here, because Keith Lee is a babyface and Gunther is a heel. And there is a difference in their working styles because of that. But I don't want to take anything away from Gunther and say, oh yeah, if Keith Lee had just, lost 30 pounds or 50 pounds, he'd be in the same position that Gunther is in. No, I think Gunther is just that damn good. But I think Keith Lee definitely hurt himself, probably in the eyes of Vince McMahon. Naughty Delicious Chicken with Flavor. I honestly miss Kevin Patrick and Corey Graves on Raw. Their commentary kept me entertained. I don't know if that's a joke tweet or not. Like, I don't miss them at all. Of all the things you could complain about Raw, I certainly am not complaining about the announce team. I think Michael Cole and Wade Barrett are doing just fine. Renzo, it's obvious what Nakamura said to Rollins. No speak English. Dick the Cock Johnson, Candice would have been booked better by Tony Khan. No, she wouldn't. If Candice LeRae was in AEW, she'd be wrestling on fucking Rampage and Dark Elevation every week, when Dark Elevation was still a thing. So, no. She would not, in that women's division, which has its own problems, no. Candice LeRae would not be any better off there than she is in WWE. Bobby's World, if Edge goes to AEW instead of WWE in 2020 and decides to form the Judgment Day there, who do you think he brings in? He's not going to do that. So it doesn't matter, because he's not going to do it. I mean, the Judgment Day, he should just take over from Malachi Black, and he already has the House of Black. We talking about a dark faction? We have literally a faction called the Dark Order. But it doesn't matter, because there's no way that's going to happen. Peter Cordieri, what up, my peeps? Ready for the Solomonster match. Peter? Solomonster has a lot of love for you, brother. I appreciate that. The Comedic Genius, I feel like I heard you review the main event a lot. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll bet you do. You've heard me talk about that main event a lot. Quite a few times, in fact. Quite a few times. Naughty Delicious Chicken with Flavor, the same formula, the same match, and the same routine over and over. It's like Missionary Impossible positions every single Monday. Missionary Impossible. Is that what you call it? Just when I thought this night couldn't get any worse. Oh, for God's sake. Why do you do this to me? Libido Bell. Thank you for the 25. Will I be in London for All In? No, I will be right here. I'll be watching the show, and I will be live on YouTube next Sunday as soon as it is over. That is where I will be. Christopher Smith with the $4.99. Loved the presentation of Nakamura. He came off like an anime villain, and it was just so freaking badass. I would not mind him doing more promos like this. I said before, I think it was the best promo I've ever seen him give, or any sort of promo as far as the presentation of it, in his entire time with this company. I hope they do more. Ennis, the bro as a heel, a mellow heel. Thoughts? It's not impossible. I think it would be an interesting swerve if he goes heel instead of McIntyre. Can he pull it off? I don't know. Because it would really require him, I think, to be more serious more often. We've seen him get serious before, but it's been fleeting. I don't think he can just play the same character. I think he would have to change it up a little bit. I don't know what kind of range he would have. Peter, thank you for the 1999. Look at this. Peter coming in hot tonight. Naughty Delicious says, I triple dog dare Dirty Dom to yell to Cody Rhodes that The Legend of Zelda sucks and threaten to feed Pharaoh chocolates. Instant heat. We have got Arabian Night. WWE is short on main eventers compared to AEW. The same 5 people main eventing for months now, especially on Raw. We need some NXT call-ups. What are your thoughts? I have no idea why Braun Breaker is still in NXT. I'm at a total loss. Why is he still in NXT? He is doing absolutely nothing. Nothing. They'll feed him a random match every now and then against someone like a Baron Corbin, or Von Wagner. He wrestled Ilya Dragunov. They had a very good match recently. But he's completely just directionless right now. He's done all that he can possibly do. He's advanced enough that I think him on the main roster, I would not say that it would be too soon. Right? Some people get called up too soon. I think it's the perfect time to get somebody like him up on the main roster. Now, I would not thrust him into the main event right away, but now is the time to call him up so that you can start building him, and maybe 6 months or 9 months from now, he can be in the main event, or a year from now, he could be sniffing main events on Raw or SmackDown. He shouldn't be doing that out of the gate. That's why I think it's important you get him up there now. Start building him now. I have no idea why he is still stuck in NXT. We have WH1T. Anyway, thank you for the $4.99. That Japanese text on Seth's back is the Bushido Samurai Code. Okay, well, there you go. I was wondering what the significance of it was. So he's got the Samurai Code down the crack of his back. Seth Rollins does. Chris AXC, any shot that you bring back members only Q&A? Yes, it's just a matter of timing more than anything else. And for the Legends tier members, I want to get back to uploading more retro audio as well. For those who don't know, if you're a Legends tier member, which is the slightly higher membership tier, the first 13 episodes of the Sound Off that I ever did, from 2007 into the beginning of 2008, those are up. Because the first, I think, it's like 84 episodes of the show that I ever did are not available anymore. So on like Podbean and now Spreaker, I think I want to say it starts from episode 84 or 85. So for the Legends tier members, I started uploading the original. I have them all. And I got 13 deep, then I got sidetracked. Because I have to do editing on all of them for like music or stuff that may have to be cut. So the first 13 are up. If you want to hear what was going on in the world of wrestling from my perspective back in 2008, feels like a lifetime ago. Chris also says, if WrestleMania 40 is Cody Roman 2, isn't the result obvious and then anticlimactic? No way Roman wins again, right? Oh, there's always a chance Roman wins. You got these fucking idiots who want him to beat Hogan's record. There are people out there who actually want him to beat Hulk Hogan's record. But no, I don't think it makes it anticlimactic to the point where they shouldn't do the match, because there's a story being told. And I think there are people who would be genuinely worried that they would do it again because they want Roman to beat whatever the next imaginary record is. So it might make it anticlimactic for some people, but I think if they tell the story the right way and they go out there and have an excellent match, they were having an excellent match at WrestleMania this year, so we know they have it in them. I think it'll make for a great moment if he gets that win and You know, it's the 40th WrestleMania, and he gets that big final kind of bit of closure there to the story. You finish the story. You don't deviate from that just because, oh, well, people think he's going to win, so we can't do that. It's like when Christian came back to the company in 2009, I think it was. 2009 or 2010. And he was going to originally do something at the Royal Rumble. And I want to say it was involving Matt and Jeff Hardy, but word leaked. And Vince McMahon said, well, we can't do it now because people know. So they sent Christian to ECW, to the ECW brand instead. If the idea is good enough, you go with it. Even if some people think they know what's going to happen, right? It hasn't happened yet. Go with it. He changed the whole plan. Because, oh, people knew. We can't do it now. Anyway, Chris, not you, Vince, I'm talking about. Naughty delicious chicken with flavor. I'm ready to order a double McRiddle sandwich. That sounds positively awful. Trill Mexican 305. 3 years ago, on a special edition of AEW Dynamite Saturday night, in the main event, Mr. Brody Lee defeated Cody Rhodes for the TNT Championship. That was a very memorable squash that night. I remember that very well. Devin from NJ, just what do I need to do exactly to be a top podcaster, wrestling commissioner, and sex symbol like Solomon? Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You just got to work your ass off. That's all you got to do. You got to work your ass off. You got to have some degree of talent, at least a little bit. And then you too can be a top podcaster and I don't know about the commissioner part, but you could be a top podcaster. You just got to put the work in. Zachariah Sitchin with the 1999. Zachariah, thank you. Seth should lose the strap to Shinsuke in my humble opinion, but I doubt it happens. And when should Cody win Priest's Money in the Bank briefcase? Also, Seth should join the club. I'm 30 years young and my back be killing me as well. Yeah, man, let me tell you, you know, if I go for like a walk in the park, like I've been to Central Park before, right? And Central Park, it's a like on a nice summer day, it's a beautiful place to go for a walk. I don't get into the city much anymore, but Central Park is gigantic. And I would be in Central Park and I'm walking from where, you know, where like the zoo is, right? Like around that area. And I'm just walking straight back. Within like 10 minutes, my lower back is barking. I don't know why. But it's like, it's sore. I got to turn around like, all right, we're done here. I got to leave. And that was like years ago. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. It happens to everyone, I guess. It's terrible. Phenomenal beard. Something I have never had. Hey, Solo, wanted to show appreciation. Much love to you. Phenomenal beard. Thank you. That beard is quite phenomenal. HBKC83, in my opinion, what is the best Cena versus AJ Styles match? I'm partial to their SummerSlam match in 2016 because I was in the building at the Barclays Center and it was a fantastic match. But I know a lot of people will mention the Royal Rumble match and I can't argue that either. What's so impressive about the Royal Rumble 2017 match where Cena won number 16, I think it was. They did that match and I don't think they left the ring a single time. I don't think they went to the floor one time during that entire match. There were no table spots, no throwing the guy into the ring steps, no fighting into the crowd or into the aisleway or anything. They just kept it in the ring and they had a great wrestling match. That was at the Alamo Dome. But the SummerSlam 2016 match is the one that I would go. Christopher Smith, if this is still happening come next month with Monday Night Football, Raw is going to be brutal to watch. You think Raw is in trouble from Monday Night Football? Wait until we get into the college football season when it comes to AEW Collision. Collision is still stuck in the 400,000 range. Now imagine when the sports competition picks up. Oh boy. $1 bill Phil is going to become $500,000 Phil on a regular basis. Actually, he'll be lucky to be $500,000 Phil. I think it's going to be a lot worse than that. Groovy Goose, Raw sucks, and it's almost as bad as the Mets. Well, almost. We have got Libido Bell with that $25 perfectly timed Brie mode super chat. Did Hulk Hogan hurt the business more than he helped, or is it the other way around? Young fan here was not alive for Hulk Hogan. You know, he did a lot of harm, I think, to a lot of people. And I think he was very selfish. But there are a lot of stars and top stars in the business who are very selfish. And I think to some degree you have to be selfish. But he was really selfish. And I think when you look back on his career, like, I don't know that I would be sitting here right now doing a wrestling show if I didn't grow up at that time, during that period when Hogan was on top and Hulkamania, the whole Hulkamania thing was really first, like, nationally taking over. So I can't be the only one. He helped bring a ton of fans into wrestling that probably still watch even to this day. And he was the golden goose for so long for Vince McMahon, and he brought a lot of eyeballs to the product. And I have a lot of fond memories involving Hogan from my wrestling fandom. In the grand scheme, did he do more harm than good? As far as Vince McMahon, he did great. He did great things for Vince. To the business as a whole, I think it's a little murkier. I can't give you a clear-cut answer. I think it just cuts both ways. I think he is somebody who clearly did a lot of business and made a lot of money for a lot of people. But he also just was all about Hogan all the time. There are people in wrestling who you hear stories about, or you just watch the way that they're utilized on TV, who are very giving and putting other people over and working with different people. It's some people operate that way, other people operate a different way. Hogan was one of those people who operated under, it's Hogan first and everybody else is a distant second. And that hurt a lot of people. But like I said, business-wise, how can you argue with the success that he had and the money he made? I think it just cuts both ways. It's hard to give a definitive answer one way or the other. And then because I look at it like this also. Not only was he the face of that golden era national launch that Vince McMahon had in the mid-'80s, the rock and wrestling era, right? He's the only guy in the history of the business who can honestly say that he was the face of two different boom periods. He was the face of that mid-'80s expansion when WWF went national. He was the face of the NWO era of WCW, the one and only era of that company where they were actually beating Vince McMahon. Only time it's ever happened, only time it likely will ever happen. And that was as a heel. One is a baby face, the other is a heel. That's just something that's never been done before. And we all know the success that WCW had and that whole period. That doesn't happen without the NWO taking off the way that it did. And I don't think the NWO works without Hogan agreeing to be the third man. So, make of that what you will. Base Beerus, God of Seduction. Burials. Hassan, Taz, Sandow, Bagwell, Demon, RVD06. RVD06, I mean, he buried himself. So, I put that all on the company. We got Dr. Bropio. I banned myself from watching Raw during Monday Night Football. And Arabian Night, 2000. $10 super chat. Do you think injuries to Braun, Orton, Bray, and Big E have hurt the main event scene in WWE? You're getting too many repeated matches, that mass firing in 2020, and stars like Bryan and Cole leaving hurt their depth. Well, it's, we got this thing called the draft and the supposed brand split. So if they didn't have that, they would have greater access to more stars who could go back and forth between the two shows. Right? Does it hurt their depth by having injuries right now? Of course, injuries are always going to hurt your depth. Tony Khan is experiencing that right now as he tries to put together the biggest card in the history of his company. He's been hit by a whole multitude of injuries. So injuries are always going to be a problem. And I don't know that Big E would be in the main event scene right now, even if he was able to wrestle. He may have ended up, like Kofi, where he gets to taste the main event for a while and then ends up being, relegated back into the tag team scene. So yeah, I mean, that definitely plays a role in it, but that doesn't change the fact that there's people who are on the roster that you could push, or you could rotate out of main events just to kind of freshen things up a little bit. You can have non-main eventers in a main event every now and then against an existing main event, right? If they wanted to, they could have headlined Raw with Chad Gable against Gunther. They didn't do it because of the finish. If they were going to have a clean finish, if they were going to have those guys go out there for 15 minutes, 2-3 commercial breaks, and then Gunther wins in the end, I would have headlined the show with that. Like, it's okay to do that every now and then and break things up and break up the monotony of the same matches over and over again. You can't just say, oh, well, it's injuries. Well, there's nothing they can do. Hands are tied. There's really nothing they can do. They should be able to come up with enough different matches that they can feature in the main event where they're not repeating themselves every week or every other week. That's not an excuse. I wonder what the main event for Raw next week will be. Anybody want to take bets on what you think the Raw main event will be next Monday night? So thank you for hitting the goal. The goal was 400 likes. We are now at 468. And Climby, boy, it would be nice if we hit 500 before we get out of here. Wouldn't that be something? We'll hit 500 later on, but hit that live would be pretty cool. Base Beerus with the $4 super chat, a 420 to be exact. Jeff versus Jeff or Akebono versus Big Show. Buy, sell. I assume Jeff versus Jeff, you are referring to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match last week. Big Show and Akebono is something that I try to block out of my mind because just the image of Big Show in that, I don't know, I forgot what you call it. It's not a gi, it's whatever the sumo, the fucking diaper he was wearing. They got a close-up shot. Oh, God. Ugh. You know what? I think, honestly, I think I would take Leatherface in that situation. I think I would.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the Booker.
It is time to be the Booker, where we randomly book ourselves a handful of wrestling matches and see how it turns out. Why? What purpose does it serve? No purpose at all. It's just fucking fun. Except when I book a pretty shitty match, which unfortunately has happened quite a bit recently, but I think our fortunes are going to turn around today. I really believe so. Let's start with the men. And, let's see all those B2B emojis from our channel members in the chat. All right, here we go. We begin with The Miz holding the WWE Championship on the night that The Miz in his promo talked about being WWE Champion. We land on The Miz as WWE Champion. It's almost like this thing knows. It just knows. The Miz against Razor Ramon. Ooh, that's, I'm a Razor Ramon fan. I am a Razor Ramon fan, but on the other hand, it's The Miz. And that just don't work for me. Razor Ramon would make short work of The Miz. Razor's Edge. 1, 2, 3. Thanks for coming. All right, now, here, this is always just a disaster in the waiting here with Women's Be the Booker. I don't know why. Plenty of good choices in here, but we've had some pretty bad Women's Be the Booker picks. We begin with Trish Stratus, everybody. How about that? We go from The Miz, who we were just talking about on this show, to Trish Stratus, who talked about debuting when she was 24 years old, and she looks 24 here in this picture. I wouldn't be surprised if this was from her rookie year in 2000. In fact, I'm almost positive that was from her rookie year in 2000. Trish Stratus was not known to be a very good wrestler back when she made her debut. She did get better, but it was over time. Trish Stratus against AJ Lee. I can get that. I can support that. I like AJ Lee. I like Trish. I know you may not think so based on my critique of that segment tonight, but I actually am a Trish Stratus fan. Trish Stratus and AJ Lee. Gotta give that a thumbs up. Now we come to the tag teams. Who will it be? What teams will we land on here on this fine Monday night? We begin with the Bang Bang Gang. Bullet Club Gold, Jay White, and Juice Robinson. That's what they call themselves, the Bang Bang Gang. I think I saw a porno like that once. The Bang Bang Gang. All right, here we go. So Jay White and Juice Robinson going to be taking on Penta and Rey Fenix, the Lucha Bros. Yes. Bullet Club Gold and the Lucha Bros. That is a match that we probably will end up seeing at some point, and I think it will be an excellent match. So 2 out of 3, I'm pretty happy with that performance. I'm pretty happy with that. Compared to what we've been doing, I'm pretty happy with that performance. Paul Carpenter, how can you dislike The Miz and Razor Ramon? They are the best Intercontinental champion. Yes, but you have to understand something here. I'm trying very hard to book main event caliber matches here. I'm not trying to book an opener here, the curtain jerk. I'm trying to book a main event. That's my goal here. That is my goal. All right, so 2 out of 3. I'm pretty happy with that. That's a good way to start the week. Can't complain. Let's put this Raw show in the rear view, shall we, please? Let's look ahead. We look ahead to Dynamite. We had a wild Dynamite stream last Wednesday, by the way. Between just the discussion and everybody going crazy in the chat for some reason, and in the super chat, it was nuts on Wednesday. So let's see if we can replicate that this week, because we are getting ever closer to the Wembley Stadium show. Actually, I guess this is the go-home Dynamite this week. That's right. This is the final Dynamite until All In. And I believe they're actually taping Collision on Wednesday, I believe. So we'll talk about Dynamite on Wednesday night. And then we have SmackDown on Friday. I mentioned on the show yesterday, the podcast, the main flagship, probably going to go up Saturday night. Because Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern, actually noon Eastern if you count the pre-show, is All In. And so when that pay-per-view is over, probably at 11 o'clock at night, I will be live on YouTube to recap the entire thing for you. So I will not be in London like some other people will be, but I will be here, as I always am. I will be here because I need to be here for all of you. So it's going to be a busy week. I hope you will join me for all of the festivities. Retro KOH, dropping that 420. Let's not hate on Miz. Razor could pull a good main event out of him. So you think I should have given that the bell? Is that what you're saying? I made a mistake by giving that the I think you're just disappointed. I could have gone 3 for 3, and I gave that the buzzer instead. Razor Ramon against The Miz is not a match that I'm going to sit here and fantasy book and go, man, I wish, of all the matches I wish we could have gotten. You know what? The match that got away from us, the match that I really wish we could have gotten, Razor Ramon against the fucking Miz. You can enjoy that match. Arabian Knight says, I feel bad for Triple H. He lost a lot of his black and gold NXT talent in the 3 years to AEW and never got the shot to book them on the main roster like Undisputed Era, Keith Lee, Andrade, FTR, and Swerve. I don't think Swerve liked Triple H very much. Yeah, I don't think Swerve was very happy in the situation that he was in. But you know what? Some of the other ones, I think one day Triple H will probably get the chance to book them again. Especially Andrade. Base Beerus, God of Seduction. $15 super chat says, WrestleMania 21 was my first WrestleMania. I was 10. Kurt Angle against Shawn Michaels was so good that my grandmother came into the room and she literally was compelled. She was compelled watching Shawn try to escape the ankle lock. Masterclass indeed. GWO. There's a reason why Bobby Heenan, after he watched that match, called it the greatest wrestling match that he had ever seen. Think about how much ground that covers. Think about all the years he spent in the business as a wrestler and a manager, as a fan. It was a master class between two of the best of all time. We got Kurt and Shawn. I only wish we would have been able to get Kurt and Brett. I think that would have been just as good, if not better. All right, I think that covers all of your messages. I think I got you all. I got you all in there. Thank you for the love and the support. I appreciate it. Be well. Stay safe. Have yourselves a great rest of your Tuesday, since technically it is now Tuesday. And we'll be back here on Wednesday for the Dynamite stream. Hey, the Winston Slip. Getting one in here at the buzzer. Why do you think we never got a Jericho versus Kurt feud? We did. We did. In 2000. They wrestled for the European and the Intercontinental titles heading into WrestleMania 2000. It wasn't like a months-long thing, but technically we did. We did, and Kurt was not even at his peak. He wasn't even in like peak Kurt Angle form. So I guess, yeah, we missed that on that. But Jericho and Kurt, we did get them in 2000. SJR, love you too, brother. I'll see you guys on Wednesday for the Dynamite stream. Take care.